Hey, Flowmies, it's time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast. So this week we are going to talk with Jeff Hansen. He is the owner of Superior Window Cleaning Services in Minnesota, but he also runs the windowcleaningwarriors.com forums. Kind of a nice little utility that you can go to on their website, look up information on anything with window cleaning. He breaks it down into different categories. Really neat tool to have. The reason why we wouldn't have him on here is because he's in the high-rise business and he has a lot of knowledge about the safety aspects of it. And if you are familiar with or keeping up with IWCA, and it's kind of everywhere right now, you know that there was 4 changes to the RDS Safe Practices. So that's the rope descent system recommendations that the IWCA puts out or had put out recently. So we go through and we're going to break down the different changes that were made, why they're important. Jeff has a lot of tools on his own YouTube channel that we're going to talk a little bit about. But you're just going to see all the different safety aspects that go into this type of work and why it's important. We'll also learn a little bit about his history, how he got into the industry. Really interesting conversation. I personally am not a high-rise cleaner, so I brought in Nando Medina to help us out since he does have some of that in his business. He's a little more knowledgeable. And even if you're not a high-rise person, it's a really fascinating discussion. A lot of things that I didn't know needed to be taken into consideration that now with these recommendations, they're finally addressing. So we appreciate him joining us. Now let's get to the interview. Hey, Flowmies, time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast. This week, we are happy to have Jeff Hansen. So he is the owner of Superior Window Cleanings in Minnesota, Window Cleaning Services in Minnesota, but he also runs the Window Warriors Forum. So we're going to get into his forum, how it can help window cleaners learn how to find out what tools they like, just get some advice when they need it. But the main reason why we had him on here is because IWC recently had updated some rule changes when it comes to high rise. And because he is an expert in high rise, we have him here to discuss the different changes, how it's going to benefit, and also just kind of, why these things were a long time coming, and we're happy that they finally made them. We also have with us Nando Medina. He's one of our mods for the ITF, of course, as you all know, the Nandolorian, as we like to call him around here. But he's also does high rise, and he's on the board of the IWCA. So we thought, since I have zero high rise experience, it's good to have someone else here to ask the right questions, and we can get as much information for our listeners as possible. So, anyways, thanks, Jeff, for joining us. We appreciate you coming in.
Oh, glad to be here.
How's everything going?
Everything's going good. Snow hasn't started flying yet, so we're good here in Minnesota.
Very good. Oh, we're glad that your voice is back. We had scheduled this interview earlier in the week, but he had a little touch of laryngitis, so I'm glad that cleared up pretty quick.
Much better. My kids loved it.
I bet. Yeah, our wives and kids probably enjoy that time, right? Good. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How'd you get into window cleaning? How'd you get started? Did you have a background in the family? Did you have a friend who invited you in, or?
Yeah. So what I did is, I started my business. My wife and I did. So we work together in the business. She does the office, all the office work. I assist with the office work, but I mainly work in the field with the crew. And we started that in 1998. So we're on like a 23rd year business. So when I initially got started with window cleaning, I was early 20s and started working for a large company in the cities, one of the larger companies, maybe a crew of like 25 guys, mainly did commercial high-rise work. And I was delivering equipment to job sites.
Okay.
And so I got to know what all the equipment was with the high-rise equipment, scaffolds, everything like that, erecting them, setting everything up. And also washing windows, because while I was, dropping equipment or picking it up, if I had downtime, I'd be assisting guys, finishing up jobs, whatever I could do, just so you're not sitting around in a truck. So it was good. It was great to learn the industry and what it entailed. So, the pay for a driver only goes so high. So then I realized that I could make more money washing windows. So then I entered, probably after 8-9 months, I entered the field washing windows. Worked my way up, and I worked for that company for 5 years. Probably 4 years into it, I was offered a supervisor position. So I took that role on, and I realized, and I was a younger guy, a lot of the crew was older than I was. And I realized an office job really wasn't my deal. I loved working outdoors or just moving around a lot. So I kind of went back into the field after doing a supervisory job for 6 months or so. Just a better fit for me. And I kind of have the same feelings now as I'm going to work as long as I can, stay out of the office and just work in the field. And that's where I fit in good. And that's where I thrive.
Very
So
cool.
as long as my body keeps up, I have torn
That's
shoulders, bad back. I mean, the industry does, it takes a toll on your body. So keeping it up, and it really does. The labor that's involved with it, the intensity, people are surprised. A lot of new employees being on your feet all day. If you're climbing ladders, carrying the equipment up to roofs, down from roofs, it's strenuous work. A lot of guys are surprised how tired they are at the end of the day.
So how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 48 years old.
How old?
48.
40. Okay, we're real similar. I'm 47. I
So
started in 99.
Oh, no, okay, yeah, very similar. So, I'm married and we have 5 children. So,
oh wow, very cool.
Yeah, busy times. So,
yeah, absolutely. So, but I totally get you about the you get to a certain age and I can still do it.
Yep.
The question is, will I be able to do it the next day? That's the question. I just had to do. We had a guy who was on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I had to work. And then we had a guy calling sick. So I pulled 3 13-hour days in a row just because we had to.
Yep.
And that weekend, I was like, my body was like, dude, what are you doing? How old do you think you are? So it's just one of those things where, you got to listen. I mean, I still like to do it. I still enjoy it. But now I'm still trying to break away and trying to do more office, stuff and manage it. And let the young guys handle all the hard stuff.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So you started Superior window cleaning in what year? Was it
1998?
Okay, 98.
Yeah.
80. Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh, no, 89. 89. Sorry.
89. Okay.
89. Yeah.
So then you've done that, and then when did you decide did you do Highrise like really quick after, or did you is that kind of gradually get into your business?
I did. I knew, entering, being a new business, at that point I didn't have any children. I wasn't married at that time either. I was dating my current wife now, but at the same time, I knew I wanted to do the Highrise, but it took so much more to get into Highrise. I mean, your customers pay so much later. Mm-hmm. When I entered it, I started with residential with the mindset that I wanted to be geared to move to Highrise window cleaning, but I needed to do residential to keep the cash flow. Mm-hmm. So as I would do my downtime between residential jobs, I would, just to keep the cash flow, I would solicit commercial properties in the area. I already had experience with Highrise. So, and by that time, I probably had a good 4 years of doing the Highrise rope descent work. So I was capable of doing any job. I knew what the tools were. I just had to get on the business side, lock in insurance, everything like that. So I did start from the beginning with the full insurance, and our insurance policy is at unlimited heights. And insurance policies for the Highrise, it's tough. A lot of guys say, oh, it's tough to find insurance for residential window cleaning, 3 stories and under. It's even tougher with the Highrise. And then the work comp is another animal. So that was a little tough.
Yeah.
So I did know, and I did start doing both. And I even tried doing some storefronts too, because being in Minnesota, it's seasonal. So we have the winters, and even though we can do it all year round, the demand for it just diminishes. And not only does the demand, but the profit level for the business owner is lower too. Mm-hmm. You can only be outside for so many hours when it's 5 degrees, 10 degrees. So your jobs are going to take longer because you just have to take more breaks. Then you have to pay for alcohol. Alcohol, raises in price, isopropyl or whatever you're going to use, raises in cost too. So those are more expenses, but you're charging the same rates.
Right.
So that was a kind of a tougher thing. So we did some snow removal at the same time, just because when you're in a new business, cash flow it's tough to keep the money running to pay your bills and just to keep the business going. So I started at like a half a year. First 6 months, I started mid-year, and the following January is when I hired my first employee. So I developed pretty fast.
That is pretty fast.
But it's because I already had experience washing windows.
Right. Yeah.
So that's huge. And that's one thing I would recommend to so many guys is even if a guy came to me today and says, I'm thinking about starting a window cleaning business, could I work with you to get some experience? I would welcome the opportunity. The reason I would welcome that opportunity, they would be trained in right, especially with the high-rise end. I've taken on like a mentorship role with a couple companies locally that wanted to get into high-rise. To me, I don't see it as a competition. It's more of networking. You can do so much more. We had a couple of companies together where we would order 500 pounds of rags together and we'd get such bulk discounts. And then we'd split them, we'd each buy so many and then split them up. You get discounts on tools, doing stuff that way.
Yeah.
And there's so many windows around the city. We live in a large city. So we don't butt heads on jobs much at all or anything like that. But mentoring and making sure the high rise, it's a tough industry. It's such an unsafe industry, and it has been for so long. And so that is seeing that firsthand and seeing employees that come over and the stuff that
what they do. Yeah.
So to get people started on the right foot, tell them which training programs to get before I work with them. I'm more than happy to work with people just to get them headed in the right direction.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have the same philosophy too about with competitors, because we are a big city, but I am looking for the higher end clients, which means there are a lot of kind of lower end that, they still are looking, they still need work, and I will still clean those, if it fits within our thing. But a lot of times, if I've got to choose between a higher profit house and a smaller profit, I'm going to pick the higher one. Right. So that means I got to have people I can recommend too. Right. And so that's what I talk to my competitors. I'm like, hey, look, I'm not trying to get all the windows. I just want to get the windows that work for us. So if you want, if you do good work, if you've got good reviews, if I recommend people to you and they call me back and say, hey, he did a great job, thanks for the recommendation, I'll keep sending them to you. Right. And I have a few guys like that. I remember I got a call from this one guy, and he actually had applied to work for me. And so I called him up, and I'm thinking I'm talking to a potential employee. Well, and I asked him about his experience. I asked him, one of the questions I ask when I hire is, what brands do you use? What's your favorite brand? And the reason is because if they're like kind of janitor level window cleaners, they don't care. They just grab a squeegee and go. But if they're a window cleaner, they're very specific about what they like and what brands they've used. And so this guy says, I just like all of them. I know how to use all of them. And I was like, okay, but what's the brands that you like? What do you prefer? Like, if you had a choice, what would you pick? And he started kind of getting argumentative with me. And it turns out he was starting his own business. Right. And I don't know if his plan was to work for me and get my secrets or whatever, but that's kind of, as we started talking, anyways, he just said at the end of the conversation, he got annoyed with me because of the questions I was asking him. And he says, well, I'm just going to go and steal all your customers. So I hope you enjoy, only not having work. Like, it's just some threat like that. And I was like, all right, dude. All right, well, whatever, Anyways, it turns out that a friend of mine knew the company that ended up hiring him, because I guess he did get a job. And he told me, he goes, because I knew the competitor well. And he told the guy what happened, and the guy was like, "You said that to Gabe? Yeah. Do you know what a bad thing you just did?" Because he knows everybody in the city, right. And now he's, if anybody asks him, him about you don't want that, So it was just funny, but you got to be careful like that, because you like you said, we kind of work in a network. There's a synergy that goes around with the window cleaning companies. Yeah, you got to just kind of connect to it and be cool, and then it works for everybody, instead of having that attitude.
Right. Along with that networking, so now I know a couple of guys that have high-rise companies in the cities here, and it's funny when we get potential applicants for work, we can call one of these other guys when they've worked for them, and it's amazing because you can confront this guy and says, I checked into your references and they're not at all. It's like people always overqualify themselves, especially with the high rise. And it's amazing because do you not think somebody's not going to realize you don't know, and why would you overqualify yourself for a high rise? Anything else, let alone the squeegee. And a lot of people will think that window cleaning is just a simple task. I'm just going to say I have a year experience. I'm going to walk in there so I can get myself started at a higher pay rate. I'll get on site, and they just don't know.
I'll pick it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a technique, it's a certain technique. And when you learn that technique, you're good. But a lot of people say, how hard could it be? Right.
Right. Right.
Interesting.
Well, the other thing I really enjoyed about kind of learning about your company and just you in general, so you started a forum called the Window Cleaning Warriors Forum, and it's online. It's you got your shirt on there, so anybody
Yes.
who wants to connect, they can look at your shirt. Tell us a little bit about what got you going to start that, because I know that took a lot of work for you to kind of get that organized. If you guys haven't done it or seen it, if you want to hit the pause button and check out the website real quick so you know what we're going to talk about in the next minute or so. But just tell us a little bit of the startings of that, because it is a very valuable resource for people who are either getting started or just need some advice on different things.
So what it is, Window Warriors Forum, it's windowcleaningwarriors.com is the site. I'm all about teaching people, and I'd rather see you guys enter on the right foot. There's so many mistakes that people make, and if we can learn from other people's experience and their mistakes, it's huge. It just gets people off on the right foot, and it progresses them so much faster. We all don't use the same tools. What a storefront guy uses compared to a residential guy, compared to a high-rise guy, they're all different tools. So if you don't like a ledger, well, maybe it's because you're doing houses and you don't have many deep ledges. Commercial guys, we have deep ledges all the time. So that might be a really beneficial tool. There's a lot of tools out there that are just tools that you might use here or there. They're good to have, and to have them or to know about them, it just helps you save time, makes your jobs more efficient, and brings that profit level a little bit higher to you. So I started the Window Warriors Forum. It's not a Facebook group. So the Facebook groups usually are, there's just so many egos in the window cleaning industry, and there's arguments and fights and the littlest thing, and guys with less experience just get crashed inside there for asking a simple question, and more experienced guys come in and just think it's absurd that they're asking this and wasting everybody's time. I think those are great questions. I mean, there's a lot of members. I don't even know it. We're probably up to maybe a couple hundred members right now. We have not that as many active. Obviously, they're all not that active with posting, but I get messaged constantly with guys who don't want to put a post in there publicly and ask me questions. And I'm like, I'm happy to answer your question, but if you would put this on the forum, that would be huge, because other people are going to learn from it. It's a great question, So I started it almost 3 years ago, probably 2.5 years now. And it's because the type of forum, it's in categories, and you can search high rise, you can search, there's even a small section for pressure washing, residential. It kind of like individualizes each different type of window cleaning service that a lot of guys provide, including some of the add-ons. What are good add-ons? What are you doing for add-on here, and what's working for you? It's just picking each other's brains and seeing what's working. Sometimes what works for a residential guy might actually work for somebody who's doing high rise or a different type. So it's just seeing what's out there. And the other thing is promoting safety. Learning about safety. So my biggest thing when I worked for that large company, when I first started out, we had no safety training at all. There was none. It's like this guy with 5 years experience brought you out to a job site and taught you how to clean windows, put you over the side of the windows if that's what you wanted to do. But there was no actual training or safety this or put cones. It was amazing. So and that's one of the reasons why I left, and just seeing what the people tied to stairwell railings, and just amazing. It's just amazing of what people would do. It's just so unsafe. I could provide a safe work environment for myself and for employees. So that's one of my things. And with the forum, I learned through training, we outsource all of our training. So, and the reason is because these companies that we outsource it to, they're up to date on all the newest changes of the regulations. They don't send you, OSHA won't send you a memo saying, hey, we changed this regulation for window cleaning or for lift use. This is what it is. You have to search out that information. So you don't know about it unless, the stuff isn't that easy to find. There's so many, you Google safety using a boom lift. There's so many things that come up, and the newest regulation might not be in there. So we found out, so we use like in aerial lifts, we use the self-retracting lanyards. Well, when I started window cleaning, you could just use the 6-foot, just long lanyard, always dragging there. Well, it took until one guy was parked on the ground, basket was on the ground. He fell out of his lift. His head was hit on the concrete because his lanyard was 6 foot.
6 foot, something helped.
But it allowed him to get all the way out and hit his head. So they changed that regulation, self-retracting lanyards. So you can't get to that point if you're on the ground. And it's one accident can change everything.
Yeah.
So you have to know about it. By outsourcing your safety to a safety company, they know, they're up to date on all the regulations.
Yeah,
so that's a benefit of that. So guys that don't, so we inform people on the forum of any changes that we know about, stuff like that, stuff that your average guy isn't going to know about. But our biggest thing is tools. What tools to use, what works for you, this is what works for me, and even doing just tool reviews, seeing what works for people.
Well, I appreciated just how easy it is to find information on it. I think that's the biggest challenge with the groups, because there is a lot of valuable information and input and reserves, or I mean, not reserves. What's the word I was looking for? Recommendations of different products and videos even of how to use it. But if it was like 6 months ago, I mean, good luck trying to find it, right? You know, you can do the search function in the Facebook groups is terrible.
It is.
And there's like no logic to it. You know, like even if you want to look, you remember, it was this one guy who talked about it. You can search his name and you'll get posts from like 2014, but that one won't pop up, you know, and it's just the weirdest setup. But with your forum, it's very easy to go right to the section that will have the information that you need. So I think that's where it's pretty valuable. So,
and that's kind of because I'm an old school window cleaner. I've been around for so long. That's what was initially set up back 10, 15 years ago. But the problem is you couldn't talk about every tool. You could only talk about certain tools. And it's like, well, that's not right. This other tool is an awesome tool. And if more people knew about it, it'd be a great, it could be a great purchase for them. There's so much wasted money that I spend on tools. It's like, it doesn't work for me. And it's like at least you can kind of get ahead of it a little bit.
Right.
And it worked for this guy doing this type of work or
Exactly.
not. So, but the search feature was, it's pretty basic, and computers and myself, I mean, I can squeegee my way around anything, but when we get to the technical and computer side of things, that's my handicap for sure. That's when my wife runs the office side of our business because she's more valuable there and she's got that down for sure. So with the forum, it was trying the ease of finding information was big, for me, I guess. So
that's pretty cool. Pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever checked that out, but I have to go in there and like I said, I'm in your position too, as far as when it comes to preaching safety. Especially with the majority of the Facebook groups out there, if there's an actual image I have on my phone, and for the longest I've been wanting to post it, but just because in the position I am in now, I have to watch what I post, and I might hurt some feelings. It's the truth, but people are going to get hurt whether they take it personal. It's really not personal. I'm looking out for someone's safety. I'm looking out for someone that's around you that can get hurt, and people just do not know how to take positive advice in the right way. And oh man, I just think of
it comes across differently when you see it in a text form rather than speaking with somebody. So a lot of the times, the poster might not mean anything negative, but the way you take it by reading it is different too.
It's different. And I always pre-post, like when I do, like recently, I think I called out, I didn't call them out, but I asked them, because curiosity, this was on a solar panel group, and I asked because I seen the guys taking a picture, doing some solar panels, and one, I see soap on the solar panels.
I know.
Two,
I saw that. Remember that picture?
Two, I see them wearing harnesses, but I don't see anything where they're attached to. And then the guy that was actually holding the phone, his harness is not even buckled in. So I said, hey, just out of curiosity, what why are you guys wearing harnesses if they're not tied up to anything? Is that just like for show? But, I told him, I said, I'm not here to push your buttons or anything like that. I made myself clear, like, if you're going to use something, we just actually we talked about that on one of our board meetings that, when it comes to members and all that, posting pictures and all that, if you're not going to practice safety, don't even post the image up, because at the end of the day, that's what we are doing. We're practicing, teaching, preaching safety, and we're trying to make the industry a lot better just by changing those little bad habits that people have. Even on a single story home, the majority of people won't use a harness. The only person that's exempt from having to put on a harness is the actual business owner. If you go up there and you walk up there, that's you. But your employees or your subcontractors, they have to be tied up. You have to have a plan for that. And a lot of people just don't get it. Like, well, it's not about that. It's about regulations. This is what we're trying to prevent any accidents. If we were in the construction field and we were obligated to do this type of preaching to the construction workers, I got some stories for these guys too. But we're in the window cleaning industry, and it's tough, man. It's tough trying to get people to.
Well, I stopped. I remember a while ago, I used to, every time I'd see an unsafe picture, I wouldn't do it in the post, but I usually would DM them, and I just say, hey, just so you know, this is unsafe. This is why. And it just, like you said, Jeff, there's just so much ego in it.
Yeah.
It was almost like you said, I was attacking them. When I wasn't, I was just concerned, and I would explain why it was unsafe and why I say, look, you just posted this on the internet. People from OSHA could see that, they can see that, and then and you could get yourself, fined just from this picture. So even if you don't believe that this is unsafe, just don't post it, because you're setting yourself up, if they're looking for any evidence. But anyways, after a while, I just said, I'm wasting so much energy on this, and people just won't listen. They're just going to do what they're going to do. So I just I'm very selective. Sometimes if I know the person well and we have a good rapport, I might say something, but other than that, I just kind of let it go, because like I said, it's just a lot of energy to get negative vibes back.
And we all know, so a lot of window cleaners are consider themselves tough guys, and I can do this, or I can climb that roof, or I can climb that pitch, but we shouldn't. I know we can do it, but there's a better way. And a lot of guys get caught in I always hear is the customer won't pay to do it that way. And that's so wrong. We do work for some of the largest companies that waste so much money on the simplest training for their people. They want to know that you have a training program in place, and that we sell safety. We got Sprat certified just because we can sell that extra level that's not required of safety to our customers, and they love that. So you can sell safety. So it's not just, and window cleaners too are so creative. People are like, tweaking tools here and there. And when you start tweaking the way you move a ladder or the way you position a ladder, that's not the creative you want to be, right?
Right.
And guys are like, they're comfortable with it. I've done it so many times before. And it's like, that's the problem. When we get too used to doing something, catch off guard.
One of my competitors, who I don't know well, but I know, we've kept in touch over the years, just because he's a very nice guy. He was older than me. He was at a house, and he was doing this whole like on a ladder, like scooting it.
Oh yeah.
And he was on the inside, and I guess there was several, real close windows, but he was trying to get to this. So he was scooting like that, and the ladder just went out from under him, and he fell, ended up breaking his back. Yep. And he was out for like 2 years before he could actually clean windows again. But he used to run like 4 trucks. He was one of the biggest companies in town, and then he just retired. I went over and visited him, because he actually doesn't live too far from me, and just talk with him a little bit. But he, it changed. His whole business changed from that. He didn't lose his business. He still worked, and I think he sold it to one of his employees, and they're retired. Him and his wife are retired. They've been doing it a long time, but just one little thing like that.
One thing,
because it was unsafe. He knew it was unsafe. He knew he shouldn't have done it. But that's a good example right there, where my mind is at when it comes to safety too. And when I the close people that we do talk to on Insta, I get a lot of messages
through my phone. So I know who are the ones that are actually doing the process and the effort to trying to change their business models, their how do they approach safety when it comes to doing jobs. But why wait for that one accident to happen? Why, hey, if I'm pushing you to do things the right way, it's for a reason. We're trying to avoid that one, because God knows if you're going to make it out that one mistake or not. For instance, that guy that broke his back, he could have split in two and he would have never made it. He just broke his back. But
Yeah.
you know, it's that's where my safety philosophy is at. Where, you know, if I'm going to push you towards you, you know, I know you're pretty close. I do not want to learn later down the road that you didn't take my advice and now I got to come to a funeral and still feed you some safety while you're 6 feet under, you know. But that's the whole point right there for me, that, you know, you just push safety. You make them.
I had one of my techs. We had just literally done the online Michael Draper safety class, literally like that week. You know, I had them do it. I go on site. I went to go. I had put them on the house, and I went to go check another one. I came back, and I drive up the driveway, and what do I see? One of my techs using a ladder incorrectly. And I just got down and I said, "Hey, get down! What? We literally just took a class. I think he had a picture that looked exactly what you just did right now of what not to do, you know." Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, you know, I understand, but I didn't feel unsafe. You know, it was secure." And I said, "Look, if you fell off a ladder and you know, became paralyzed because of it, how much money would you pay to go back in time and not do that?" And he's like, "A lot." And I'm like, you're there now. So how about we just not do that and we keep you walking and you don't have to pay all that money to go back in time to invent a time machine. So let's just do it now, because I don't want to drive up and I see you laying on the ground. I mean, that would, you know, it break my heart because I care about you as a person. But, you know, think of all the other people who are going to be affected by that. You know, just don't, you know, I don't care. I don't need that. I don't need this to be done any faster if you're going to do it unsafe, you know.
I make sure my crew always knows that most of the time I'm on site because I work with my crew every day. But the times that I'm not, I always make sure they know it's up to me to bid the job properly so we can take the time that it needs to do the work safely.
Yes.
And if there's something that you don't feel comfortable with doing, don't do it. That's our number one thing. If you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. There's either somebody else on the site that can double check, see what it is, and either educate you and say, okay, this is a safe way to do it because of this, or you're right, that shouldn't be done this way. We're going to take a little bit more time. We're going to have somebody spot that ladder. And, you know, but the employees have to know they don't need to work in an unsafe manner. Right. It's up to me, the business owner, to put enough time on a job to allow it to be done safely. Yeah, one of the things with the Window Warriors Forum was the tool review. So we get equipment from like ABC Window Cleaning Supply sends us stuff, Sorbo, for us to review it. And what I do is I like to send that out to different guys, a guy that does residential or a guy that does commercial, to see how the two different uses of that tool work out. Because we all use so many of the same tools, but we use them in different manners, or something that works for residential might not work for the commercial again. A big thing with Highrise is descenders. So with descenders, there's a couple of guys trying a different type of descenders now. I promote self-braking descenders, even though my entire career, I've used a 4-bar rack. It's a fast rack. I love it. I enjoy it.
I'm a rack guy too.
Up to 2 years, and a lot of guys will use like a Fisk, but we stopped using it 2 years ago, because if you, with a 4-bar rack or a Fisk, if you're repelling at any point, if you let go, you're still moving. Yeah. So then you're going to be caught by your safety. So because of that safety factor of it, we only use self-brake. And a lot of guys don't like that, especially the old school window cleaners. Oh, I'm not changing. They will not change. But as a company, and the way I set my company training and our policies, it's required everybody uses the self-braking, because the self-braking, you have a lever. When you pull that lever, anytime you let go of that lever, it stops you where you are.
Or even if you over pull on it.
Or if you over pull on it. So we have guys trying, and I've tried, I'm doing the, you know, I'm probably on my 5th style now, and I found one that I really like. But it took me 5 to get there. So we have other guys that are trying some too, to see what their feelings are. They came off of using a rack or a Fisk or whatnot too. But by getting that feedback from different guys that do the same work that you do is huge to see. This is what I love about it. This is what I don't love. I only use them, once a month. It's good. But if I use it every day, it wears it out. Some wear out faster because a lot of these tools that the high-rise window cleaners are using are for the rope access industry, that they're not repelling like window cleaners are. So for my sprat to get to my level 2, you need to accumulate like maybe 400 or 480 hours to move up to the next level. Well, for me, it's easy. A lot of these sprat guys, it takes them 2-3 years to generate that many hours on rope. For us, we're doing it, 40 to 60 hours a week. That time comes quick. So the equipment that we're using, it shouldn't be the same equipment, because we're going to wear some of those aluminum parts out of it or whatnot, or we need to make sure we're inspecting it more because we're putting more wear on it. So what that manufacturer says it should be inspected at, the hours for a window cleaner are going to be so much more than maybe a rope access guy that installs a sign. I mean, we're repelling over and over daily, putting a lot of hours.
I'm on my second Petzl in 2 years, not even the full 2 years.
Yeah. So I stopped using those because because I would wear them out. I love the device, but yeah.
And the way I found that I was actually kind of worn down, or it was starting to wear out, was where after even I locked it, my rope was still slipping a little bit. I'm like,
it slips.
Slipping. So then when I got off my rope and I go and I check, I'm like, oh, I see it. Like,
that's interesting.
Trying to trash this, you know what I mean? Go send another one out. What are you using now?
So what I'm using right now is I'm using the D4. So when I went through my Sprat training, we used all their equipment. So it was an okay device, but at that time at home, I was still using a Petzl ID. After my Petzl ID, I went to the No Worries. So DBI Sala made a No Worries. It's discontinued now, even though they manufactured it for like the last few years. You can't buy them anymore. So what I did is I went and I bought like 6 of them, as many as I could get my hands on, because that's what I liked. What I'm finding is the handles on them now are wearing out, and that the handle on that on the No Worries is a smaller one. And I'm not a big guy, so my hands aren't that big, but bigger guys, it's more a hand. But in the winter, when you have big Alaskan gloves on, the handle's smaller to hold. So that D4 has a large handle, but it's been working. I've been using the D4 for a few months now, and it's worked out great. One thing I found out with that Petzl ID on drops above like 400 feet, it didn't perform well at the very top when you have so much, when your ropes, once you get to the bottom and the rope loosens up, it would work well. So with the D4, it works at the taller buildings and the lower buildings. So at the lower heights.
I have to look into that, because we don't do as much rope access out here. We have some facilities that do have the opus, where certain sections it allows us to do it. So we're happy. I prefer to do rope work myself. If I can replace we own a swing stage system. So if I can replace my swing stage work with rope work, I'm all for it, because it's 2-3 times more work to do with swing stage versus just descending over on a rope and getting it done in half the time.
So are you limited to how high? To like 130?
100, and I think the last time I checked it was 150.
Oh, 150.
So
so here's another thing that's great to talk about it. So in Minnesota, we had from 2007 to 2000, I don't know, maybe 11, we had 4 or 5 fatalities for high-rise window cleaning, just in the cities.
Whoa.
Within 20-mile radius of where I do work. 4 to 5 fatalities is unheard of. And for it to be in the same city, it just shows how much lack of so many companies are out there.
I was going to say, do you know if these were different companies, or was this the same company?
They were different. Yes, different companies. Each different companies. 2 of them were using the rolling roof rig. Rolling roof rig, has a front set of wheels, rear set of wheels, and it has counterweights on it.
Right.
So a lot of guys think, because I have that counterweighted unit, I don't necessarily need to tie it back. because it's counterweighted. You still need 2 independent tiebacks on any device you use. Another common thing was people would roll them when a guy was hanging over the side. You could do a whole side of the building by zigzagging. Yeah. And one roller would be at the roof, on the roof, rolling it. But you can't get a tie back that's going to work for that long of a period on majority of any building that's going to tie back a roller on the roof, a lifeline for the guy over the side, and the backup line. It's just too many to be in a moving system, and people would do it. So 2 of the fatalities were the guys. So building window cleaning companies own these rolling. A lot of them were Fitch rigs or the MIOs, and they own them. They bring them up to the rooftop, carry all this equipment plus a couple 100 pounds of weights up. 2 of the fatalities, they never put the weights on. And one of the fatalities, they were sitting at the parapet wall. The guy had to step over these to get into his chair.
Oh my gosh.
The roller that was on the rooftop, the person working on the roof didn't notice it. And the guy going over the side didn't notice it. So in one of them, when the guy put his weight onto the rig, it catapulted. So the back end came up. The guy on the roof tried grabbing it, flung him over the roof.
Goodness.
So it was the roller. So the other guy did fall too, but he was down closer to the ground. So the fatality was the guy that was working on the roof, probably making $12 an hour. And for a simple thing, so they didn't tie back to any anchors, and they didn't put their counterweights on. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. Wow. And that was a main, well-known franchise high-rise window cleaning company in the cities. What's worse than that is even a month and 2 months after that, they still received, that same company received many major violations on other job sites, severe violations, upwards of $20,000 and $30,000 per site. Right. If one of my employees fell any type of fatality, if I still was in business, because I couldn't take it personally, it'd be tough, but I would be the safest company out there. But to have a fatality and then continue not to adhere to safety guidelines, it's tough. Yeah. The other one was the guy brought his weights up to the roof. They left him at the roof penthouse door, and they never put him on, and they weren't tied back to anything. And the third one was a guy fell through a skylight. IDS Center in downtown Minneapolis, there's tiers of skylights, 4 stories, 5 stories, 6 stories. And you would clear the snow, window cleaning company would clear the snow off the pyramid skylights so they wouldn't get too much weight on them. Well, it was a job I worked as an employee many times. And there's a cable system. You put a full body harness on with a lanyard, you hook to the cable system. They save time by not hooking to anything. But if you're looking up and saw a guy clearing snow, you would see he had a full body harness on. He fell to his death wearing a full body harness that wasn't attached to anything. So those things they knew what they were doing wasn't right. They weren't abiding by any regulation at all. But now Minnesota, now they're over-regulated because we had so many dangerous accidents. If you have an accident on a ladder, if you're a residential guy, odds are you're going to break something. You're still going to get injured. If you're a high-rise guy and you have an accident, more than likely it's going to be a fatality for a high-rise guy. A scaffolding, a guy that has an accident, you see him most commonly twisting in the wind on a motorized scaffold. When they have an accident, they don't really get hurt because they're stopped by their lifeline and they're dangling there. And then the fire department comes and rescues them. But high-rise window cleaners using rope descent, when they make a mistake, it's usually a bad mistake. And it allows them, it's because they didn't tie back to anything to allow them to go down. So Minnesota was OSHA was recognized us as a hazardous industry. So anytime OSHA saw a high-rise window cleaner working on any building, it was mandatory for them to stop to that site and inspect it, where normally they only inspect sites where they get calls on, or if there's a reason to inspect it. So because of that, in 2012, Minnesota OSHA put special regulations just on Minnesota high-rise window cleaners. It's the same regulations that the rest of the country got in 2017. So in 2017, in Minnesota, we've already been doing, using.
You guys are already ahead.
Years. So we knew. So we had contacts for engineers, everything like that, and they weren't really changing. So in 2012, not much of my work changed. because we already had certified anchors we were using. We were doing things right. The only problems we had when we would use a parapet clamp on a parapet wall, now that parapet wall had to be rated at that 5,000 pounds. If you put two of them on, it had to be at 10 to hold two. And then it has to be with a certain, length of a span that you're connecting those two. You couldn't put four right next to each other because it's not going to take the weight. So the problem is new buildings now are built, a lot of the parapet walls are hollow. So who says a window cleaner can determine what that wall is made up underneath the flashing and stucco? And you don't know. So that's why you need a qualified person to come in to do that inspection, your load test every 10 years, and your annual visual by a qualified.
So now that's where the opus comes in, where they're trying, especially it's harder to get with older facilities, but that's an OSHA for us here in California. That's an OSHA regulation that any type of work we're doing on any high-rise or mid-rise building, we are supposed to get an opus through the building owner. It's a very expensive process, but it's a one-time process, laying out the procedure of how the window washing services should take place. Anything the window cleaning business owner does outside of that plan, window cleaner is liable for that. Right. So it's very important to do all that.
Oh, go ahead, Judge. I just want to make sure we get to the safe practice changes before we run out of time. But if you got something else you want to share, go ahead.
I'll do it quick. So as of 2012, every property we work on, we need a logbook. Your logbook's going to have a picture of the building. You open it up, it has exactly what Nando was talking about. This is a 15-page just for the inspections of the building. And every building owner has to supply this to any contractor working at heights on their building. And they have to also on their letterhead give that contractor a letter of assurance stating that the certifications have been done and that they're in compliance. So then myself, the window cleaning owner, has to also give that building owner a letter of assurance stating my guys are trained. I'm fully aware of all the OSHA regulations and we're in compliance and will be in compliance of those. Along with that, any company that's working at heights has to have their own rescue plan. 911 isn't good enough by itself. It can be a piece of it, but you also have, so we own equipment. It's an R4, we have an R500. So it works at 500 feet. It's a system to where one of my inside guys that doesn't do the high rise can safely retrieve one of my workers that are high-rise guys working over the side of a building without getting close to him with the parapet wall. It's an amazing piece of equipment. I mean, it's like $2,000 to $3,000. So it's on every single site, but it's our way of complying with a way to be able to rescue our workers so they're not hanging on the side of a building. Along with that, it's the training. You have daily roof plans. I mean, the letter of acknowledgement that you walk your employees through the work sites to inform them of where these anchors are at, what hazards are there. I mean, it's just like the JHA, the job hazard analysis. It's required. Still, even in Minnesota, I would say 80% of the companies don't have this. And that's where OSHA doesn't regulate the industry and window cleaners know it. And I think that's the same throughout the country.
Yeah. And I think not just in window cleaning, I think in general, there's just not enough inspectors.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, guys, those changes. So we're going to talk with the 4 changes. And I always say changes. It's kind of odd because some of them aren't changes, right? But the first one was the use of helmets. Right. So myself being SPRAT certified for the last 2 years, myself and our crew have worn helmets because rope access industry. My ultimate goal is for window cleaners to be considered a skilled trade. Mm-hmm. It not only increases what I charge to customers, it increases what my employees make. Mm-hmm. Employees should want to do things the right way and go through extensive training. We have many different training, cards and credentials from many different places. And those employees, every time they take a new class, they get paid more. It's great. But a lot of window cleaners say, oh, what's going to happen to my head? Why do I need a helmet? And for a helmet, lanyards are required for squeegees when you work at heights. You still have probably 80% of guys that don't use them. I'm not going to drop nothing. What about the guy below you if you do, or the pedestrian or the car or the, whatever it can do? So a helmet can save you from a tool that's dropped from above you, or somebody that's working on the building, or another guy that's rappelling. Our feet are touching the surface of these buildings. A lot of these buildings are old. If you hit a stone ledge, knock a brick loose, it has happened many times, even on brand new construction cleans, where something wasn't fastened properly, something could fall. But my biggest concern with, and reason why we don't mind wearing the helmets, is in the event of a fall, more than likely your head is going to be knocked on the building surface. We're right up against that building surface. An unconscious person is so much harder to do a rescue on, and obviously can't do a self-rescue. So in that just, it's like, I can kind of compare it to a seatbelt in a car. I've worn a seatbelt in a car for 30 years. I've never been in an accident. I've never needed the seatbelt, but you know what? I still strap that seatbelt on every single time. And I don't even, it's just a memory now. I strap my seatbelt on every time I get in the car. Our employees put a helmet on every time they go over the side of a building.
Sometimes you try to get off with the seatbelt still installed, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Well, just real quick too, before you go on. So if you want more information on, we're going to cover this just kind of generally, but Jeff does have a video on his YouTube channel for window cleaning warriors. And he does talk a little bit more in depth on these subjects. So if you want to go in and just, search, it's probably under RDS, right?
Safety, yeah, it's probably under RDS or Window Warriors Forum on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah. But it's his most recent one, I think. So
it's just a basic overview of what, it
was helpful for me not being familiar with the changes or why the changes were needed. So, but yeah, I did appreciate the point that you said about how not everybody uses those harnesses for their tools. And, if someone's above you, it falls off of their, you have the helmet, that's your only protection really, and you're not going to see it coming.
A lot of it, guys are especially old school window cleaners, they've used a certain system their entire career. Mm-hmm. They're not good on change. It took me, this is a huge thing with the Window Warriors Forum, to try new tools, was I never did. I stuck with my same style of squeegee for probably 15 years. Mm-hmm. And it was until I started using different tools, I'm like, wow, I wish I would have started using this a long time ago. I mean, this work closes out on deep frames and shallow frames really nice. So, and that's another reason, it's changing, things change in time. Yep. Safety practices and tools get easier to use. The second one was
the harness and seatboard bosun chair. So tell us a little bit about that.
So what this is, so when a high-rise worker goes over the side, some bosun chairs come with a waist strap and a buckle, and you fasten in. Most window cleaners will just cut them off. It's just
really
it's a lot of them don't even come with that strap anyways.
Wow.
The actual chair.
It's like a seatbelt. Once you're in your chair, it just keeps it to you. So a lot of guys, I have never seen a guy that actually uses that waist part. So you're actually just slipped into your chair. So if your main line is severed, that seatboard is so loose on your body, and it kind of shows in the video, and it's very loose on your body. More than likely, it'll fall to the ground. So now you're stuck with just your backup line. So what we use a Kong frog. And this Kong frog is a device that's hooked up onto our bosun chair. And every time, right when we slip into the chair, when we slip into our bosun chair, we have our ventral connection on our harness, the waist connection point. The Kong frog, what it does is it's got 2 pins on each side. If you push one pin, it won't open the point of connection. You need to depress both. And once you depress both, all you have to do is push into it, and it connects and it locks. This is rated at over 5,000 pounds. So it's compliant with all the regulations. So this is a simple device that with just one click, as soon as you sit into your chair, you just push this down into your connector, your ventral connection point on your harness, and you're connected now. Now I'm connected to my seatboard, your bosun chair, and I'm connected to my descender. Now, if my main line is severed, my descender is right here in front of me. So now I could reroute that to my safety line, if that's going to be your method of self-rescue or whatnot. And that also kind of brings us into the third item, which is
interchangeable ropes.
Interchangeable ropes. So a lot of guys have used the same type of rope as a scaffold industry uses for a lifeline. It's a really thick 3-strand braided rope.
5/8.
5/8. You don't put that through a rack system to descend anything like that. So if you have a descender where most window cleaners will use a 7/16 inch rope or a 1/2 inch rope designed for repelling, well, your descender isn't compliant or compatible with that safety line. So if you use 2 of the same lines, you can just re-rig your descender once it was severed and still connected to you to your safety line as a means to get you to safety, which that in itself is the easiest. That's something we've been doing for probably 15 years. The repelling ropes are the ropes that you descend on are a little more expensive, but it's really not that much more expensive. And another thing we like to do is we use 2 different color ropes. So immediately we know, we always do like a orange for safety, or because you can get these ropes in any kind of color you want. And that's one thing that's great with a lot of window cleaning tools is when they come out with colors. What is it like to color coordinate your stuff? So our employees are color coded with certain carabiners. So Jim's going to have all orange carabiners or all orange equipment or orange tape, electrical tape onto his equipment. So he knows what equipment is his. And John, somebody else is going to have a different type. So we color coordinate every employee's set of equipment. So they're only using their own. They know what the history is of the equipment they're using.
Nice. I like that. Very cool. So our last one was training requirements. So what was the difference here?
So with training, I don't know. With training, it's tough. I don't understand. I still don't think it's enough. I think the IWCA's training class, it's a 1-day course and you can go hang out the side of a building. I don't think that's enough. I did a 5-day SPRAT course and there's a test at the end. One fail, you don't pass. You have to retake it. It's a stressful. I was stressed out. It was, I mean, I work on ropes all day, but this was a lot of that SPRAT course was a lot of climbing, up and down ropes. You're moving sideways on ropes. You're doing rescues. And to do one failure and you're done was a stressful time because you're performing so many different things. So training, I just don't think you can cover enough in 1 day. You go through the book stuff, you go through, a rescue scenario, hands-on. But I think it should be a little bit more than 1 day, but the
notes I see here, it says the authorized technician must log 480 hours on rope before they can become certified. So it does sound like it's an extended.
Regarding the training that the IWCA does offer, that's not official certification training, meaning that the person is competent enough to go out and do the work. This is more of a knowledgeable certification, knowing that you understand the process of this type of work. Doesn't certify you to go out and do it. So that is one clause that's in there somewhere. But the 1-day training, it's like 1910 OSHA, it teaches us, don't do this, don't do that, stay away from these areas, stay away. Rope access, that's I still need to go out and do that. I should do it even though I'm competent enough. But it doesn't 1 day of training, definitely not going to be. It's going to take maybe 100 times for you to go over the side of that building to actually start getting comfortable with the fact that you're going to go over the side of that building. And
working with a competent person.
Certified,
working with. So the hours, I totally agree that you should have hours working with alongside another competent, worker at the same time. The harness to seatboard connection is something that I-14 standard back in 2001 discussed. They discussed that in there. That was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it's just being brought up again now where there's so many in the I-14 just kind of like categorized a lot of window cleaning. There wasn't much that was really new inside of that because we've always had to have certified anchors. Just nobody did it.
Right. So it does say in here that it says a CI can't train and certify his own workers, so it eliminates the issue of an employer being able to cheat the certification. Is that something that was happening? Like employers were certifying their own guys and saying that they're good?
They can manipulate. So it is always to go outside.
Because there's nobody that checks it. There's nobody that checks it. I just ran into an ex-employee that had done he did some safety classes with me. He came from Seattle and came over to us and he was like, wow, he was really surprised at our training and where we sent them to. And every time an employee gets trained, I go with them. So I get retrained and retrained constantly, which is great for me because it just refreshes everything. And any of the guys, they're totally welcome to come and encouraged to come as well. I'll sign anybody up for another training program because of the hands-on and stuff like that, which is just beneficial. But this employee left us and took his rope access descent training and went to start working for another company, training employees in. He's not authorized to do any training. He took a class that authorized him to be an authorized user, not to train people.
Not to train.
Right.
Yeah, you got to go through all the levels on that.
Yeah. So so a lot of employers train their guys themselves. Even so in Minnesota, we have 2 union companies, which is a total of like maybe 20 employees that are union in the state of Minnesota. They still train their own guys. And that's a union company. I mean, of anybody else, I think the unions should be on board to kind of increase these. Every time they try to, they protest and, to get better pay rates, it's always about training and but they're the ones who have power in numbers that could really help also. Nobody wants to be part of the union because the pay is lower than what you can get at other places. But these unions usually are the ones that have the numbers that are able to get the volume to do, get regulations changed or safer work, practices in place. But so it's good to see that the IWCA is putting something out and just bringing it up again, and hopefully it can get more traction and get the discussion going. The discussion is the main intent and goal.
You had mentioned in your video that you recommended Jeff Scott, his training program. What did you like about his?
Yeah, Jeff Scott with Safety Green. So you're being trained from an actual high-rise window cleaner. Jeff Scott has been in the industry for many years. Not only is he a great guy that loves to teach people, just the value in that. I mean, he's not a guy that dreads doing what he does. He does it because he enjoys it. And he enjoys putting, having window cleaners work, safely. He's a SPRAT 3, SPRAT level 3, SPRAT 3 certified himself, but his crew is all also SPRAT certified to some level or not. And they also help during this training. So you have many people at this program during the class to do the hands-on that all are comfortable on ropes, that know what they're talking about, but they also talk about it as it relates to a window cleaner. I also did the capital safety training, went through the same information, but Safety Green taught it from a window cleaner standpoint.
Yes.
There's
different levels when Gabe, I know Gabe is not familiar with this. There's different levels of certification that rope access has. Window cleaners are not classified as rope access technicians because a rope access technician is someone that's going to go up to a tower and replace a fan blade, so they need rope access to get up there, right? Window cleaners are only descending downwards on a rope to access the window all on the way down. Level 1 is all window cleaning related. Level 2 is more for like counter loads to move from one location to another location, over a fence, over a certain area. Level 3 is for your instructors, which Safety Green, he got his level 3 in order for him to become a certified instructor. And it is beneficial for him to be able to do that because he's teaching everything he knows about the window cleaning industry and applying it to the level 1 certification that window cleaners need.
Got it. Very cool. Very interesting.
And for all before we close out the video, I want to point this out because I get these questions over and over and over a lot from new guys that are trying to get into the commercial side. The first thing to ask, well, how should I price this? Those are not the questions you should be asking. I mean, I understand you're out there trying to go out there and get bigger accounts. The money looks great. The invoice looks great, but those are not the questions you should be asking. Question you should be asking is, where can I go get more knowledge on becoming a window cleaner for this facility here? What training do I need to do? What do I need to do that? Whether it's low rise, mid rise, or high rise, there's a lot, like just mentioned here, there's a lot of protocols that we have to follow in order for you to be able to execute that job the right way. There's steps to everything. You need to log every single thing.
Yep.
And now, for those of you that are not familiar with anything when rope suspension, swing stage scaffolding, or any type, the RDS sheet is available for training at the IWCA website. That's going to teach you everything you need to know about RDS, rope systems. Go on there. If you have no clue, Gabe, you'll probably benefit off of that if you get the chance to put you guys through it. Not sure if you guys do it a lot, but if you start leaning,
we don't do it at all.
At all. There's good money in it, but there's a lot of training, that you have to do. It's maybe 3 times more the work from residential, because on residential you do your FHA, your
JHA.
I always get it confused. So, but with commercial, there's a lot more involved where you actually have to log the training, the way the job is going to get executed, the protocols they have to they follow, and all that. But all that information is on there. So you new guys, go to the IWCA website, learn everything you need to know about how to tackle the work. Right. Then you can go back and ask the question about how do I price this work? Because it's a skilled industry, and you definitely don't want to be charging $10 a thing.
And training is investing in your company. And it's a huge selling point. That'll separate you from your competitor. And if you're an employee of a company, we hear a lot too, employees that do things they know is not within any regulation and dangerous, they'll do it because they say, the employer makes me do it. If I don't, he tells me I don't have a job. If you're an employer or an employee, employees can go through these classes. So if you're an employee that has one of these credentials, that brings more value to you when you're looking for employment. So it's a good opportunity for you to get that better pay as well by generating something that's going to be a great selling point for that next company you might be working for.
Love it. Awesome. Well, guys, this was very informative. Anything you want to add to the discussion before we close up shop here?
Build your certificate collection.
That's right. Get a wall like Nando's.
Got more. And like Jeff says, it brings value to your business, because when I go out for the big accounts and I submit accounts, I send a couple of those photocopies of what we're certified in, what we're trained on, what we are known for. Some of those will give me my foot over that 50% line. And like, you know what, these guys have the value, but their price is maybe a little high, but it separates you. It definitely separates you.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for giving your time here, bud. We really appreciate the insight. And like I said, it was very informative for someone like myself who knows Windows but doesn't know Highrise and all the different intricacies that are involved with being safe and making sure we're being professionals while we're out there. So Flowmies, check out windowcleanerwarriors.com to check out the forum. Also subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of really good, not only that, but he reviews a lot of products. And if you're wondering if a product works, you can get his perspective from a Highrise, view, and just kind of see how these things might work for you. And like he said, we may use one product for years, but you just never know that one may just change the whole game for you if you just give it a shot. What's that?
Being open-minded.
Be open-minded.
Find something different, for sure.
Yeah. But as always, in our commitment in ITF to be safe, just some good reminders for everybody. Just get the training, don't cut corners, don't do things to save time or money that are at the cost or risk of your life. So it's a good message for everyone. So thanks a lot. And thank you, Nando, for joining us, for offering a more informed perspective with the interview.
We got to continue this later down the road. There's a lot more.
So 2 things. So one, if you want more information, please view his video that he put up just a few days on windowcleanersforum.com, YouTube. And then also the American Window Cleaner had just a short article on it that broke it down as well. So I'll post a link to that in the comments of this post in ITF, so you can read some more on that if you need to. But thanks again for your time, guys. Hope you guys have a great day. All right. And thank you, Flowmies, for listening. And as always, enjoy yourself and flow on.